Over the past 2 years, the WeeLunk staff has chronicled a number of memorable Wheeling Christmas events. From the 1900s to today, Christmas is a pretty big deal in the Upper Ohio Valley. Kooi Benz, the Santa Claus in front of the Elby's restaurant, a talking Christmas tree that knew your name when you visited her in downtown Wheeling.
That's right, Rachel, and everyone knows the story of Oglebay's Festival of Lights, but how many people know the story of how it came to be and how it still remains? Well, sit back, enjoy the WeeLunk show on WTRF.
The city of Wheeling has always had the annual Christmas parade in the downtown, and many natives of this friendly city possess memories of when the procession took place during the daytime on those Saturday afternoons, and with the entire route 7 deep along those streets. But that all changed one winter evening in 1984 when the general manager of Oglebay Park took his family of 4 to the Ehlenfeld dining room, and that's because they sat alone.
It goes back to 1984 in December. And Betty and I and the boys had come over here for dinner. And it was December the 8th. And this was when we had what they called the old dining room, the original dining room on the lodge. And we went in about 6 o'clock. We left about 8 o'clock, and we were the only 4 people in the dining room. And we had 2 waitresses on duty. We had people in the kitchen. And I just said, you know, there's got to be something we can do to overcome this. I mean, we just can't go through December. December used to only run 38% occupancy, and there just weren't, I mean, during the week, there just wasn't that many people that would come up here. They would be downtown and various other places. We had heard about the Festival of Lights in Niagara Falls, New York. We knew that it was a show that would be different than we would be looking at because it was all downtown. It was all based around their civic center and entertainment, and they had just opened up a big outlet mall and things of this sort. But the Festival of Lights was the key, and so we had on our helping us was Bob Otten, who was a designer originally with Macy's and then Stone and Thomas and so forth, a great designer. And so we decided that we would go to Westinghouse in Pittsburgh to see if we had some expertise up there that would be interested in helping us put together a Festival of Lights. And we found out when we got up there that they had sold their lamp and fixture division to the Philips Corporation out of the Netherlands. But the guy that was the vice president or president of that particular division said, you know, I think that's something that Philips could be interested in. And he says, as a matter of fact, the president of Philips USA is in this country. 2 days later, he was at Oglebay. About a week later, a man by the name of Dick Bosch came in, and I said, Dick, your boss said you were the best in the world. What have you done? And he said, well, I've done the pyramids of Egypt, I've done the Taj Mahal, the Tower of London. I said, that's good enough, that's good enough. So we put together 2 great skilled people, and they drew up the concept for the first Festival of Lights. Of course, then it's going to require money. And fortunately, we were able to go down to the state legislature. John Karras was our representative up here. Earl Ray Tomlin was in the finance committee, and he bought the idea. And for 2 consecutive years, they gave us $250,000 to put in infrastructure, which is running electric power and different things of this sort. Well, anyway, the first year we opened was 1985, and that was the year it rained 30 consecutive days in November, and we were hooking things up under tents and things of this sort. The lights were to go on December the 2nd. There was a terrible storm, and all the power was out except right in the middle of Oglebay Park. And we turned the lights on, and the first cars started, and within, I'd say about 10 days, the first tour bus came in unannounced. The cars started backing up to the bottom of the hill, and by February, we had calls from about 600 bus companies. That's back when buses were really big. And So the Festival of Lights got started, and it's just continued, and its success is going to continue because this is lights at this time of the year is always a tradition, and if you do them in the magnitude and size and that we do it, it's going to be successful. I mean, this is our 31st year or whatever the case may be, and I think this is going to continue. I mean, this will continue on as long as we do the job. And I think it was said earlier that we're going to be making changes every year, which is true, and that's critical, so that when people come back, they feel like they're seeing the show, but something is different and something is new, and the different types of new lighting technology is starting to be introduced, and so I think this is something we're going to see for many years in the future. It was a big gamble, and there wasn't a whole lot of enthusiasm to expand the show much beyond what we had at the zoo, but we got them talked into it, and we went out and picked up the money so we could do the circle from the zoo to the mansion to the lodge and back to the lake, that 2-mile circle. And after we got through 15 days of the show and the cars were lined up to the bottom of the hill, we knew that we had something, and we knew we had to expand immediately. So we went out to Spidell and got another grant at that time to get the infrastructure so we could start putting displays out there just to spread the traffic out. We had 2 miles of road, and then taking it out to Spidell, it goes to about 5. And then you've got the road down the hill. Fortunately, the only time we affect down off the hill is 4 Saturday nights a year. And but there are times that they do back up to the interstate on Saturday night. We just suggested Saturday is not maybe the best night to drive through the show, but come up during the day and enjoy the park.
There was the dream, and then there was the vision John Hargelrode and his hands-on staff members were asked to make a reality, very quickly in fact.
I never anticipated the Festival of Lights would become what it has become today. When we started a Festival of Lights at the zoo in 1980, it was a small affair, and there was a 12 Days of Christmas package at the zoo, and I never thought it would become the event it is today. Wheeling Park has been a Partners in Education before the Chamber of Commerce started the Partners in Education program, and we used to take the display designs over to the high school. We would provide the steel, and the students provided an awful lot of the work. In the early years, they would come over and install light bulbs on property and were responsible for a number of our displays that we still enjoy today. Well, as I said, in 1980, we had a Festival of Lights at the zoo alone. The Good Zoo Lights Up For You. We had 5,000 people come to that event. We were thrilled because that was about 4,900 more than came to the zoo in December. In 1985, when it went park-wide, well, it was a nice thing. It was a nice bump for the zoo. But eventually, we had over 65,000 people coming through the zoo during Festival of Lights, and it made a big difference in that area alone. Of course, park-wide, it's changed our occupancy from, I think, around 12% in December up to some years we've had north of 80%. We looked at LED lighting probably 10 or 12 years ago, and in those days it was very pricey. It was very attractive because the bulbs were very indestructible. We liked that, but initially it cost us $1 a bulb to change to LED, but it's worth it. You use 20% of the energy of a regular C9 light bulb. Many of our displays are lit with C9s and C7s. And so it's had a dramatic impact there. It also makes it easier for us to put displays wherever we want to because we don't have to run huge power supplies first. Well, the Festival of Lights has to evolve to remain fresh for our guests. We try and change it up every year, and Christmas at Crispin this year is a new direction to open up parts of the park in new ways that we have not done so in the past. You will always see Festival of Lights change from year to year, I am sure.
When Steve Hilliard was selected as the new CEO of the Wheeling Park Commission, most of the work connected with the Festival of Lights already had been completed. But rest assured, he's now realized just how important those twinkles are to the local economy.
I had just gotten here last year. I had only been here, a couple of weeks, and my wife came up for, to spend the to spend the light up night and the first few days, and so she hadn't seen Festival of Lights at all. I'd seen a little bit of it as it was going up, and we had the light up night, and then we immediately left after the dinner, and we went out and did the tour for our very first time together, and it was really fun. I think we probably were like every kid that comes here, it was just amazing to drive through and see all the exciting displays, and then you compare it to this year where you get a chance to see how much work is really involved, because of course I got here, everything was up and ready to go, and this year not realizing that it really is a whole year effort, because as soon as it comes down, the team has to start kind of preparing for next year. So it's a combination of, taking some things down and reworking everything, checking all the bulbs, there's welds that have to be redone, and the planning for what are we going to do in the coming year. It truly is a year-round effort. It's amazing, but well worth it. The great thing about the Festival of Lights is I don't think there's any real different vision today than there was. Well, we heard Randy say that, it was like we never really knew, and John say we didn't know how big it was going to get. But for years now, it's been about how great can we make the show, what can we do to make it better, what are additional things that we can do to keep it fresh and exciting so that folks that come year after year get to see something that's really fun. That's a vision that doesn't change. There's no reason for it to change. When you think about Festival of Lights and you think about there was a need, it's like, so what can we do to advance the park and help the park become even bigger and better and more sustainable from a programming standpoint, not necessarily from a physical plant standpoint. And then how do we make it better each and every year? What can we do that makes it, and that, for us is, we immediately think, I think people think about, what's the new display going to be? And our team thinks about, well, what food should we serve? Should we change that up a little bit? How should the traffic work? Should we change the traffic? Where have we found bottlenecks so that we can make that easier for our guests so that they can come through and really enjoy the lights? What can we do that maybe little ones might enjoy? I talked to a couple earlier today who, kids are out of the house, they've all moved on. They've 11 consecutive years that they've been here. They've been more than that, but just 11 years in a row. Kids are out of the house, they still come. This is their time, they come, they enjoy the lights in their own way. So for us, I think the Festival of Lights really is a microcosm of what we try to do throughout the park, is always improving, always try to make it better. Most of the work is behind the scenes, and if we've done our things right, people never know. They just know they had more fun and they really enjoyed themselves, and that's the way the whole park's meant to be.
There are many Christmas time traditions here in the Wheeling area. Going to the Alpha on Thanksgiving Eve, for example, officially launches the local holiday season. And then there's that cruise through those Festival of Lights, sitting on Santa's lap at the Imperial Christmas Shop, heading to West Banco for the Wheeling Symphony's Christmas on Ice performance, or simply remembering the real reasons for the season when peering up at the Bethlehem Star. Christmas is a highlight here, and it always has been ever since Kooi Benz created its winter wonderland that offered Wheeling kids the real Santa in a very similar workshop environment we now see in the movie A Christmas Story.
Well, you could divide my years in Kooi Benz, my childhood and my work career. Growing up in Wheeling and having the furniture store in my family's name was very special, and as a little child going into Kooi Benz when everything was set up with Toyland and Santa, it was very magical. Of course, I visited Santa many times, going down to visiting my father who worked there as well as my grandmother who was president, but I knew when I walked in, when I saw Santa, when he addressed me by my first name, I knew I was in. I was in because Santa knew me personally Of course, I believed in Santa, and I knew I was going to get everything on that list if I had a first name connection with Santa. But as a child, it was just so magical. And then in my adult life, I started working at Kooi Benz in 1972 after I graduated from college. So I was on the other side where I actually employed Santa. I had Santa on the payroll, but it was just special for the community, and that's why we did it, for our community, for our customers. It was very seasonal. We sold the toys just during the fall season. Toyland opened in November, and of course the day after Christmas we had a half price sale, and people were lined down Jacob Street to get into the store, and the first thing that always went were our trains. But the people that visited Kooi Benz, just thousands during the Christmas season. It was a magical time at 36 and Jacob Street. It was a total dedication, there's no question about it. There was a gentleman, our chief maintenance engineer, his name was Rudy Wodarczyk. He was Mr. Christmas. He would meet with my mother, or my grandmother, after the first of the year and actually start planning for the upcoming Christmas season. So it was really a 365-day planning session to get ready for Christmas, to prepare for Christmas. Bill and Paul Kooi took care of the toys. They were the managers of our Toyland, and they bought the toys, set up the Toyland, set up the train display. But we had the real Santa. Everybody else, they were the helpers. Even Stone and Thomas, of course, Stone and Thomas being a major department store, he was not the real Santa, it was Kooi Benz. I always tease people or tell people that that's the reason why we had a flat roof on Kooi Benz, so Santa could land his sleigh. I mean, if you're the real Santa, you gotta have that sleigh, and you have to have a landing spot. So Kooi Benz, we had the real McCoy.
If you were raised in the Wheeling area in the 1970s and 80s, you likely remember the talking Christmas tree. She called out your name from that front window of Ellis Goods, and it may have scared you at first, but you warmed up to her quickly and made a memory you'll likely never forget. One of the young ladies who helped make that Market Street magic happen was Dawn Dean, who was employed at Ellis Goods while enrolled at West Liberty University.
In 1981, when I began my college education at West Liberty State College, which is now West Liberty University, as a dental hygiene student, I had an opportunity for a Christmas position at the LS Good Company. I was dating a young man who already had worked at the facility and knew the Good family growing up in Wheeling, and so I was offered the position as one of the talking Christmas trees for that season. There were prerequisites for the position, and you had to be a certain stature and a certain weight, because you actually were physically going to be climbing and staying within the body of the tree during your work shift. So you had to be at least, 5'2", 5'4", roughly around 120 pounds maximum. You had to wear jazz attire, all black, so you were blacked out within the body of the tree. And your shifts were 8 hours. They did let you in and out, for breaks and for your lunch and such, but you were primarily within the body of the tree. When we were in the Christmas tree, it was very exciting. It was an iconic opportunity to engage the children. And oftentimes the children were really excited, and they were like pulling on their parents' arms or sleeves and saying, look, Mom, look, Dad, the tree's talking. And then they would gravitate like a magnet right up to the window of the storefront. And as I was moving the eyes and the mouth within the body of the tree and communicating with them, oftentimes they were jumping up and down. They wanted to stay. In that era, you could let the children stay. So oftentimes if the parents were going on to the G.C. Murphy Company, then they would let the children stay and visit with the talking Christmas tree. There were children that were frightened. There were children that would hide their heads. You even saw adults doing that. So it wasn't just the children. I knew a lot of the people in the community, so I knew them by name. So I was able to call out to them, and that often surprised them, and they would look, astonished as to how the tree knew their name. We always knew the children's names because it was people who were employed that were community oriented. We often were involved in town gate or different aspects of the community, involved in community projects, so we knew almost everyone in WeeLunk. So it was fun for us to be able to call the children and the parents by name. So if there was a passerby like Mr. Horn or Mrs. Horn or Mr. Good, we would call them out by name or call their children or their relatives out by name. And it always surprised the children. The children would, like rush to their arms of their parents and look at the tree and wonder, how do they know my name, mommy, or daddy? And, it was really fun for us to engage the children on that level. Here at Coleman Fish Market, the Coleman family embraced the opportunity to keep the icon going and an opportunity for history to remain relevant for the city. They're inviting children on a regular basis to talk with the Christmas tree and keeping that vibrance and that giving spirit alive.
It was during a planning meeting 2 years ago for the WeeLunk Chamber's Perkins Fantasy and Lights Parade when someone suggested searching for the talking Christmas tree. And that suggestion sent Bill Bryson on a mission.
Finding the tree started out as a parade inquiry. Leanne Lander is the creative director, and she called one holiday when her family was in, talking about the old L.S. Good talking Christmas tree. Said, hey, let's see if we can get that for the parade. Thought it was a great idea. And we started looking for either an old tree, some way to duplicate what we had back in the 70s. And couldn't find anything anywhere. So we said, well, what if we went back to Cregan? George Cregan made those trees back in the 60s. So his regular business, the Cregan Company, was out of business in Steubenville at the time, but he had something going on at Christmas time up in Wintersville. So he traveled up to Wintersville, and we got there and it had closed a couple of weeks before. There was an older gentleman there, and he started talking to me about the Cregans, and I said, this is what we were trying to do. And he said, he has a daughter named Mary Elaine, and she's married to somebody, I can't remember the gentleman's name, and here's a contact. So we did the research, found her, said, are you interested in trying to help us recreate this talking tree? And as it turned out, she said, I might have some pieces. So we went to the old Cregan studio, which had been closed, and sure enough, there were some pieces of the old tree, an old tree there. So we hired her and a former employee of Cregan, and they basically rebuilt the talking tree from the pieces. So by November, we had ourselves a talking Christmas tree. I don't know that we actually were able to duplicate it. The face was very colorful, children-like face, and it was a half-moon mouth on it, and I can see it, but I have never been able to find an actual photo from back in the 70s. We talked about what do we do with this tree? We don't want the same thing to happen to it that happened after the 70s. Everybody goes their own separate ways, and the tree falls into disrepair and gets trashed, and there is no tree. So we said, okay, let's see where they might be able to use it. So we called the Colemans, and they said, yeah, we could use it down here at Center Market. We've got a place to store it. We'll put it in the parade. And so we ended up building Cooper cabinets. Jim Milvitt built a base for the tree. So now we had the base and the tree, and the Coleman family said, hey, no problem, we got room, we'll store it. We'll use it during the holiday season, and we'll store it in the off season. And that's how that happened. I think it's nostalgia. I think it was an icon at one time, and kind of the history of WeeLunk. I think people enjoyed seeing it. On the first parade, it was something that they hadn't seen in 40 years. And then the Coleman, the folks down here at Center Market, Kurt Zendy, they've done a good job over the last couple of years during the holidays, kind of giving it a personality of its own. So now it's coming as the Center Market talking Christmas tree, not as the old L.S. Good. People saw that in 2014. Now they're seeing it as what it is today, which is the talking tree at Center Market.
and she would need a new home following that parade, and Joe Coleman not only offered to store her, but his daughter Jody volunteered to provide her with a new voice at Center Market.
Our family got involved with the Christmas tree through Bill Bryson from the chamber that does the parade, and it was his idea of wondering what happened to it. And when it was, they talked about bringing it back to Wheeling to Center Market, I was totally thrilled because that was part of my youth, and just and I knew the Good family, and I was just excited. It's like, oh wow, this is part of the heritage of Wheeling, and be able to actually be involved with just a fantastic opportunity. It was just a great thing to happen. I have memories of both grade school and high school at Central, and I can remember, especially at Central, I'd walk down the street and walk past it during lunch hour, and it would talk to me, and I would look up, and I was sort of a little bit embarrassed and go, I'd keep on going because it was like, it's like embarrassing, but it was neat though. It was just really neat. Yeah, my daughter just, she was a good friend of Heidi Good, Larry's daughter, and to see it from my youth and growing up and looking at the tree, and then all of a sudden there's your daughter, and she's in the tree, and she's making people happy, and I thought, well, it's just fantastic. It sort of runs shivers up your back, just from the 60s, and then here all of a sudden in the 2000s and 10s, you're part of the whole thing, which is just great. The reaction is just, you see happiness on the older, people like myself, because they're reminiscing their youth, and then the kids are coming along, and it's something they've never seen, and some are excited, and some are actually a little bit scared because the tree's talking. Ooh, that's sort of strange, but yet it creates a lot of excitement, and just the excitement, the smiles and the laughs. It's neat.
The addition of the talking Christmas tree to Center Market has prompted manager Kurt Zendy and the city of Wheeling to enhance the Christmas atmosphere in this most historical district.
What we're trying to do here at Center Market is bring back the old-fashioned Christmas that we once had, make it as nostalgic as we possibly can, have that open-air feel, that downtown shopping that most of us over 40 remember when we were little kids. We're trying to increase the Christmas decorations down here. We've added this year, we've lighted the Christmas trees, thankful to the city of Wheeling and to the Chamber of Commerce. So we've got that, and we've added additional fixtures in the courtyard. We plan on years to come having different displays that fit to the period that these market houses were built. So we hope to have mannequins with certain scenes, sitting, standing, talking in crowds, and different lighting displays to attract more people.
And Center Market offers much more for our residents and visitors we welcome to Wheeling, and the plan is for that to continue in the years ahead.
Thanks for watching our very first WeeLunk show on WTRF Ohio Valley. Have a very Merry Christmas and a safe holiday season.